Spacey studied at Juilliard. He came up through theater in New York the slow way. On stage, night after night, in front of live audiences who could tell immediately if you were faking it. He was not a product of a talent agency packaging deal or a studio fast track. He earned it the hard way, and he was not faking it. The early 1990s confirmed everything. Glenn Ross in 1992. The Usual Suspects in 1995. First Oscar, Best Supporting Actor. Seven, also 1995. LA Confidential in 1997. American Beauty in 1999. Second Oscar, Best Actor. 5 films in 7 years, each one a critical landmark or cultural touchstone or both. Think about that filmography for a second. The Usual Suspects alone would be enough to build a career on. The performance he gives as Verbal Kent, the way he controls the entire film from a position of apparent weakness, the reveal at the end that recontextualizes everything you just watched, that is a masterclass. Film schools still teach it. And American Beauty was considered at the time one of the defining performances of its decade. By 1999, Kevin Spacey had 2 Oscars before 40. That is rarefied territory. Directors wanted him not because he filled seats. He was never really a traditional box office draw, but because his presence elevated a project, made it serious, told the world this was worth paying attention to.
Then, in 2003, he became artistic director of the Old Vic Theatre in London, one of the most storied theatre institutions in the world. He ran it for 11 years, produced plays, directed productions, performed on stage himself. It was not a vanity project. It was a real commitment, and the theater community respected him for it. He came back to American screens in 2013 with House of Cards, playing Frank Underwood, the calculating, fourth-wall-breaking, absolutely ruthless politician climbing to the presidency. The show won awards. Netflix became a prestige destination, partly on the strength of what Spacey was doing in it. He was back, bigger than before. At its peak, Spacey was earning around $500,000 per episode. The show had been renewed for a 6th season. His production company, Trigger Street Productions, was active and respected. He had more institutional goodwill in Hollywood than almost anyone of his generation. That is what was at stake. That is what existed on October 28, 2017. On October 29, 2017, actor Anthony Rapp gave an interview to BuzzFeed News.
Rapp said Spacey invited him to his Manhattan apartment for a party and made the sexual advance after everyone had left. He picked me up like a groom picks up the bride over the threshold, but I don't squirm away initially because I'm like, what's going on? And then he lays down on top of me. He was trying to seduce me, Rapp told BuzzFeed.
He alleged that in 1986, when Rapp was 14 and Spacey was 26, Spacey had picked him up, placed him on a bed, and climbed on top of him at a party. Rapp said he was able to get away. He said he had carried the memory for 30 years and decided to speak after the wave of allegations against Harvey Weinstein made it feel possible to do so. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Spacey responded the same day. He said he did not remember the encounter, but that if he had behaved as described, he owed Rapp the sincerest apology. And then, in the same statement, he came out as a gay man. The backlash was immediate and came from multiple directions. Critics pointed out that conflating an allegation of assault on a minor with a coming-out statement implied a connection between homosexuality and predatory behavior that the LGBTQ community found deeply offensive. The conditional apology, "if I did this," landed badly. The pivot to his own sexuality in response to an allegation involving a 14-year-old made everything significantly worse. But the statement turned out to be the least of his problems. Because once Rapp spoke, others followed. Over the next several days, more than a dozen people came forward with allegations against Spacey. Former colleagues, crew members, young actors who had worked with him, a massage therapist, a busboy. The allegations spanned decades and described a consistent pattern, targeting young men in professional contexts where Spacey held power, often involving alcohol. A CNN investigation published in November 2017 included 8 men who said Spacey had sexually harassed or assaulted them.
Two-time Oscar winner Kevin Spacey faces a new set of sexual assault charges. British prosecutors are prepared to bring criminal charges against Spacey, claiming he assaulted 3 men between 2005 and 2013. Spacey will not be formally charged until he returns to Britain. He and his lawyers have not responded to the allegation.
Most of them young and in junior positions at the time the alleged incidents occurred. The Old Vic conducted its own review and stated they had received 20 complaints about Spacey's behavior during his time there, covering 2004 to 2015. Some had been raised with management at the time and not adequately addressed. That institutional admission carried its own weight.
The industry response was unlike anything that had come before it, even in the context of the broader Me Too movement reshaping Hollywood in real time. Netflix announced House of Cards would end after its 6th season and that Spacey would not be in it. They wrote his character out entirely. The show's final season aired without him. Then Ridley Scott did something almost no director in Hollywood history had done. He had a completed film, All the Money in the World, set for release in November 2017, with Spacey playing J. Paul Getty in a role considered a likely awards contender. With less than 6 weeks until release, Scott made the decision to reshoot every scene featuring Spacey and replace him with Christopher Plummer. Every scene! On a major studio release! In 6 weeks! They pulled it off. The film came out on schedule. Plummer received an Academy Award nomination. That reshooting decision was a statement in itself. It said that having Kevin Spacey's face on screen was more costly than the logistical and financial nightmare of replacing him in a completed film on a 6-week timeline. That is how fast and completely the calculation had changed. Trigger Street Productions was shut down. His agency dropped him, his publicist dropped him, his management dropped him. Awards were rescinded, projects were shelved. International partnerships dissolved quietly and quickly. By the end of 2017, Kevin Spacey had no active projects, no representation, no production company, and no institutional relationships in an industry he had spent 30 years building. He had not been convicted of anything. He had not been tried. But the industry had made its calculation and acted on it with a completeness that was extraordinary, even by the standards of that moment. What made it particularly striking was the contrast with how slowly Hollywood had historically moved on these issues. For decades, the industry had looked away, passed informal warnings between insiders, protected relationships over people. The speed of the response to Spacey, the near simultaneous dropping by every major institution within days, felt like a dam breaking. Years of accumulated silence releasing all at once. Here's where the story gets complicated in ways that the initial wave of coverage did not always acknowledge. In January 2019, Spacey was arraigned in Nantucket on felony indecent assault and battery charges stemming from an allegation by the son of a former Boston News anchor who alleged Spacey had groped him at a bar in 2016. The charge was eventually dropped after the alleged victim invoked his Fifth Amendment right during a civil deposition. Other civil complaints were dropped or dismissed after accusers declined to pursue them further. In the UK, the Crown Prosecution Service charged Spacey with 12 sexual offenses against 4 men spanning 2001 to 2013. The trial began in June 2023 at Southwark Crown Court in London, one of the most closely watched criminal trials involving a celebrity in recent British legal history. In July 2023, Kevin Spacey was found not guilty on all counts. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours.
Hollywood actor Kevin Spacey has been found not guilty. The star broke down in tears in court today after all charges of sexual offenses were dropped against him. Spacey was labeled a sexual bully after he was accused of assaulting 4 men between 2001 and 2013. The allegations not only shredded his showbiz career, but also had major financial implications, with the star told to pay £25.5 million to House of Cards producers after he was sacked. Today, on his 64th birthday, he left the court crying and wiping his face with a big sigh.
In October 2023, the civil trial brought by Anthony Rapp, the original accuser whose allegations started everything, also resulted in a verdict in Spacey's favor. The jury found he was not liable. So the legal record at the end of all of it is dropped charges, dismissed suits, and not guilty verdicts across 2 countries. That is a fact. It is the outcome of a legal process that applied the standards it is supposed to apply. It matters, and it deserves to be stated plainly.
What it did not do was restore his career. By 2023, Spacey told interviewers he had spent much of his savings on legal fees across multiple jurisdictions in 2 countries.
Where do you live now?
Well, it's funny you asked that question, because this week, where I have been living in Baltimore, is being foreclosed on. My house is being sold at auction.
Why is it being foreclosed?
Because I can't pay the bills that I owe.
Years without income, years of mounting legal costs. The man earning $500,000 per episode was describing himself as financially struggling. He spoke about the isolation of it, not just the financial pressure, but the professional silence. The phone that stopped ringing, the industry that had celebrated him for 3 decades, suddenly operating as if he did not exist. He appeared in a small Italian film, some stage work in Europe, nothing remotely resembling the career he had, and critically, nothing that suggested the industry was moving toward reintegrating him in any meaningful way, even after the verdicts. Compare that to others from the same era. Louis C.K. admitted to his behavior, disappeared briefly, and returned to sold-out comedy shows in a new special in 2022. Woody Allen continues to make films. Roman Polanski, who pleaded guilty to statutory rape of a 13-year-old in 1977 and fled the country before sentencing, remains a working director in Europe and has received awards and industry support in the decade since. Spacey was acquitted on all criminal charges and found not liable in civil court. His career has not come back. The contrast is not easy to explain cleanly, and I am not sure anyone has fully tried. Part of it may be the volume of allegations, the sheer number of independent accounts describing consistent behavior over decades, which the verdicts did not disprove so much as fail to meet the legal threshold for conviction. Part of it may be the nature of the original allegation involving a minor, which carries a particular weight that other situations do not. Part of it may simply be timing. He fell at the exact peak of the cultural moment when the industry was most motivated to act decisively and most reluctant to reverse course. Whatever the explanation, the gap between his legal outcomes and his professional outcomes is one of the starkest in recent Hollywood history. The Kevin Spacey story reveals something genuinely uncomfortable about how reputation, law, and institutional power interact in the modern media environment. The legal standard requires proof beyond reasonable doubt. The institutional standard, the one Hollywood, Netflix, talent agencies, and production companies apply, operates on a different calculus entirely. Risk, association, cost-benefit analysis. The industry moved before any verdict existed and has not reversed that decision even after the verdicts came in. Whether that is just, whether it is proportionate, whether it is the right way for institutions to operate, those are questions that reasonable people genuinely disagree about. I am not going to hand you a clean answer because I do not think one exists.
What I will say is this: the Kevin Spacey story is not simple. It is not the story of a guilty man who got what he deserved because the legal system said otherwise. It is not the story of an innocent man destroyed by false accusations, because the volume and consistency of what was alleged across dozens of independent accounts spanning decades does not simply dissolve because of a verdict. It sits uncomfortably in the middle, where most true things actually live. The talent was real. The career was extraordinary. The collapse was total. The legal outcomes were in his favor. The career has not recovered. All 5 of those things are simultaneously true, and none of them cancel the others out. There is also a broader lesson here about institutional silence and its costs. Whatever the full truth of this story is, the pattern that was alleged was apparently known or suspected by people in professional proximity to Spacey for years. The old Vic said so explicitly. The informal warnings passed between industry insiders, the looking away, the protecting of relationships over accountability, those silences accumulate, and when they finally break open, they tend to break everything at once. That is not unique to this story, but this story illustrates it more clearly than most. Kevin Spacey is 65 years old. He has 2 Oscars. He has a legal record showing acquittal on all criminal counts. He has a financial situation he has described as difficult, and he has a career that has not come back and shows limited signs of doing so. Whether that is justice, whether it is tragedy, whether it is both at the same time, I genuinely do not know. And I think sitting with that discomfort rather than resolving it too quickly in either direction is actually the most honest place to land on this one. Drop a comment. Has the legal outcome changed how you see this story? Do you think there is a path back for him, or is this permanent? I want to know where you land. I will catch you in the next one.